Alright guys, as you all know, because I literally won't shut up about it, I have been obsessed with Rogers the Musical since that Hawkeye trailer dropped. It has been living in my mind rent-free, cannot escape it, and because I absolutely had nothing better to do on my to-do list, even though I very much so needed to get stuff done this week, I decided to sit down and draft the entire musical. Or rather, it's a rough outline of what I think that musical would look like in the MCU universe, to all of the regular everyday MCU civilians, and what I think these songs would look like. So if you hate it, I'm sorry. I had fun. Truly, that's all that matters here. This is literally just sort of like a living fan fiction. Also, if you see me looking at my laptop, that is because I literally made a PowerPoint as I was working through this. So let's start with the obvious, the tagline of Rogers the Musical that the trailer gave us, a timeless story of a timeless hero. I tried to keep that in mind as I went through. So starting off, we have a song called Uncle Sam Wants You, which is going to slowly blend into I Can Do This All Day. But let's just start. The curtains are drawn. It is completely dark in this theater. From behind the curtain, we hear a bunch of men start singing. These are actually the men who are in line for enlistment. The men slowly start singing about their worries about the war, their fear, their excitement, how they're feeling about leaving their families behind. Basically just a summation of what I would imagine men who are enlisting are about to be feeling. And as the curtain rises, their voices are getting louder and louder and louder. It's still pitch black, and then bam, the music stops and we hear Rogers, Steven, and the spotlight, bam, Skinny Steve sitting up front. I really wanted the Rogers Steven moment to be one of the first things we see at the forefront, just because Rogers the Musical, it's the name of the musical, it fits. So basically Skinny Steve jumps up, he starts singing now because he hadn't been singing before, about how he just wants to do what's right and he's ready to join the fight. Maybe not rhyming it, but something like that to that effect. But the enlistment guy just boop, F right on the form. Steve is heartbroken because he's been denied yet again. He's begging the guy, he's like, whoa, is there anything we can do? Come on, please, I want to be in the war, I want to help fight. And the guy is just his whole thing where he's like, I'm doing it, kid, I'm saving your life, that's what I'm doing. And Steve, he's stubborn, so he's trying to fight it. He's like, please, is there anything you can do? Now this enlistment man, because he can't mind his own business, he starts singing all of Steve's ailments out to all of these guys who are in line for the enlistment. And he is pointing out, Steve, you've got pneumonia, Steve, you've got asthma. He's going through all of these lines and why Steve is not fit to actually be a soldier in the war. And then the guys who are in line start picking this up, and they're going, why would Uncle Sam want you? He's got me. This now merges as Steve starts singing his own song. It merges into a song called I Can Do This All Day. So I'm picturing the stage, all of these different lines of men, all symbolizing the places that Steve has tried to enlist illegally. As he's going down the line and taking his enlistment form back every single time, the pile of men who are then telling him everything that's wrong with him just grows and grows, and Steve is trying so hard. He's singing, he's defending himself, he's picking up the trash can lid and pretending it's a shield. The men are slowly converging on him, beating him down. Eventually, Steve is on the ground, the pile of men are all over him, and then Bucky Barnes shows up, right? He's coming in, he's tap dancing. That was the worst tap dancing maneuver ever. He's tap dancing and he's kicking. Okay, he's kicking these men away from the pile of Steve, and then he's offering his hand, and he's pulling Steve Rogers up. We find out he has come to say goodbye because he ships out tomorrow morning. As they're walking down the street, we get a song called Kid from Brooklyn, and in this we have Bucky singing to Steve about how he's just a kid from Brooklyn, he doesn't need to grow up so fast, and Bucky is singing about his fears, about the war, about how he doesn't want to leave his sisters, he doesn't want to leave his family, he doesn't want to leave Steve, and how he's not totally ready, but he's gonna do what he needs to do in this war. But it's kind of a realistic contrast to all of the men in Uncle Sam Wants You, who really were just excited to go pick up the fight. They're just ready to punch some people, and Bucky's here okay, this is a real thing. My life is about to completely change and I have to leave my family behind. And then, Steve picks up, it starts turning into duet. They're talking about their childhood antics together, how much they've grown already from childhood, how did they get to this point in their life. I'm picturing newsboy caps, vintage vibes, that's what I'm getting. Also, just for the meme of it all, we need a barbershop quartet singing in the background as they're doing this, just because we need a reference to all the guys from my barbershop quartet are dead. I just feel we need a barbershop quartet, please. Anyways, they end this scene, you know, talking like normal with their quote, "Don't do anything stupid until I get back. How can I? You're taking all the stupid with you, punk, jerk, etc." Bucky exits. And here it gets a tad bit controversial because I kind of combined Erskine and Peggy's roles. Sorry, but I just feel like we gotta keep the cast somewhat small. We gotta get to a Battle of New York and we're in the 40s. Basically, Bucky walks off stage, Steve is completely isolated and alone, and enters Peggy Carter. She shows up, says she's been watching him as he went to enlist to all these different places, and says she is part of an organization that wants to offer him a chance. And here we enter a song called A Good Man. This is going to be a transitional song from the streets of New York to the training field. It's going to turn into a training montage, but basically, it is going to be Peggy singing about how they're looking not for a perfect soldier, but a good man. We can even have her joking, she knows good men are hard to come by, trust her, okay? Trust her, she has seen the men out there. Anyway, she says she can give him a chance. She starts singing about all of the qualities that the SSR are looking for in a good candidate to become the first super soldier. The training montage is the same as the movie, except, you know, obviously changed for the stage format, but Steve still jumps on the grenade. And as he does that, Peggy Carter just looks at the general surrounding her and goes, "We want Rogers." And then the next scene, this is Howard's big number, okay? We're calling it Around the World. And I want spectacle, I want pizzazz, like this. The budget went to this scene. Flashing lights, I want little smoke. Like, I want Howard Stark doing the absolute most on this stage, okay? He's hitting buttons, he's running around, he's singing about all the places he loves the most in this world and how he wants to protect them. He just wants to protect this world. How Steve is gonna help him do that. How the whole super soldier program is gonna help him do that. If we want to, we can even throw something in from Agent Carter about his family life, about how his dad selling fruit, his mom was a seamstress.
Let me tell you, you don't get to climb the American ladder without picking up some bad habits on the way.
We can put some lyrics from that in there. I just really want Howard to go all out because it's Howard Stark, okay? He would. As Steve pops out of the machine, the music is culminating, it's all very exciting, woohoo, big Steve now, it's not skinny Steve. I don't know how that's gonna transfer on stage, but they're gonna make it work, I trust them. Then bam, a man fires off a shot. The Nazi spy, the one from the movie, obviously, runs towards the serum as Peggy and the general sort of do a little dance to try to catch up with him, but the guy gets to the serum first, crashes all the serum to the ground. He's really gonna try to stop America from getting these super soldiers. Peggy catches him, yells out that he's Hydra, and then this man goes, "Cut off one head, two more shall take its place," well, and then just dies right then and there because he does the tooth thing. Anyways, Steve truly thought he was gonna be triumphant and successful for like half a second in his life. He thought he had it all together, but then a general is like, "Yo, I was promised an entire ass army, not this one skinny kid who's now like not skinny anymore. What the heck?" So all the generals start to leave. Peggy's telling him, "You're still a good man, you can still make good in this world, like you can do this." And then the generals start calling Carter. Peggy has to run off stage too, leaving just that one PR dude who's like, "Hi, do you want to sell war bonds?" He starts doing a little tap dance and jig, right? He starts singing the beginnings of Star-Spangled Man with a Plan, because you can't do this without including that. I feel like you can't. He starts doing a little jig, he's pitching the idea to Steve. Steve's like, "You know what, fine. It's better than just sitting at home in Brooklyn doing nothing. I'll help you sell war bonds. I will be the Star-Spangled Man with a Plan." So anyways, he starts doing the montage that's in the movie. You know, the backgrounds are shifting, he's kissing babies, but as he's doing that and the background shift behind him, he slowly morphs out of that role and he like steps off of the stage that they've put him on, off of the platform that they elevated him to, and finally the background and all of the men behind him are now in the war zone, and they start booing and telling him to get off the stage completely. However, Peggy Carter herself walks on, and as she walks on the stage, all the men who were booing at Steve, they scatter. They run off stage. It is just Peggy and Steve. Steve is all, you know, "Do you ever feel like a dancing monkey? I feel like I'm trapped, can't do anything, don't know what to do." And here we have Peggy Carter's solo, okay? And it is very important to me that she gets this. So we're calling this song Meant to Fight, and it is 100% a reference to the quote in Agent Carter Season 2, where her brother is like, "Yo, what are you doing in this life right now? Why are you getting married? You are meant to fight. Okay, no matter what society tells you, you are meant to fight." So she starts singing about her struggles that she has had to overcome society, all the pressures it's put on her, how it's felt being like basically one of the only women in the room for most of her life. She sings about how she's lost her brother, how she's meant to fight, and how Steve is meant to fight too. And in the song, you absolutely have to include lines such as, I know my value, anyone else's opinion doesn't matter, you have to know your value, compromise where you can, and where you can't, don't. These aren't your only two options, and you are meant for more than this. I just feel like it would be really powerful to have Peggy Carter actually have a whole solo. Like, I just love the whole concept of that. And she ends it with a besides, this is nothing personal, these men are part of the 107th, and they just lost most of their men, captured by Hydra. Obviously, Steve is like, oh my god, the 107th, is there anything we can do about it? He jumps up, he goes to the dude in charge, dude's in charge is like, bro, you're a walking propaganda piece, what are you gonna do? You're gonna do nothing. Get out of here. So then Steve picks up a continuation of Peggy's Meant to Fight song. He starts singing about how she's right, he is meant for more than this, and so are those men. They deserve more than what this country is giving them right now. Anyways, Howard pops in, he's got the costume, he's got the shield, he's given them to Steve. All three of them are now singing about how they are worth more than what the world sees them as. Anyways, they're knocking down opposing soldiers by the wayside, throwing punches left and right as they go, 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 go. Bam! Steve sees Bucky lying on a table, he sees the Howling Commandos, he frees the men, you hear hints of a Star-Spangled Man with a Plan playing in the background, and they all head back to camp. The men at the camp who are left clap, obviously, so Steve has like reached that role. He's no longer propaganda piece, but an actual soldier who they're gonna respect. The generals are like, yo, let's put this kid to work. Oh my god, he can do things. Steve's like, let me get a team together, right? So he goes to Bucky, and he's asking the same question from the movie. You ready to follow Captain America into the jaws of death? And Bucky Barnes looks at him and says, no, I'm following a kid from Brooklyn. Okay, skinny little punk kid from Brooklyn. That's who I'm following. So we get a tiny little reprisal of Kid from Brooklyn right there as they're singing like, holy shit, how did we end up at this point in our life? What the heck is happening right here? Can't even believe it, but we're ready to pick up the fight and we're doing this together. Anyways, then it merges and Bucky and Steve are now singing a duet called Until the End of the Line, where Bucky is basically gonna say, I'm gonna follow you through basically it all, how rough the world gets, I'm with you, it doesn't matter, I'm following you. I'm following you till the end of the line. And as they're singing about, you know, the fight and how rough this world is gonna get, the Howling Commandos, they're doing backup vocals, and they're going down, and in the background, the back set, they're, you know, taking down Hydra bases as they speak. The Hydra goons, at the same time, they're singing their whole spiel, cut off one hand, two more shall take its place. They're doing their whole thing. They're closing in as Red Skull stands above them on an elevated platform, goading about how Steve could have the power of the gods. Universe is bigger than Cap's little fight. There's a scuffle, a skirmish if you will, and Bucky finds himself standing next to Red Skull on top of the platform, and you probably know where this is going. So everyone's fighting down below. All of a sudden they're looking up as Red Skull tosses Bucky down. Ooh, we're just assuming he's on a wire because that actor has to survive, but ooh, the Red Skull cackles, the Hydra members cackle as Steve runs towards Bucky's body on the ground, and all of the other soldiers, the Howling Commandos, etc., slowly move off the stage. Here we're having like a mix of a Kid from Brooklyn reprisal and a More Than This reprisal, as Steve is basically crumpled next to Bucky's body on the stage. Spotlight on them. Peggy walks in, you know, to find him like this. She's like, Steve. He starts singing about how Bucky's sisters are gonna miss him. Someone's gonna have to tell his family. Steve himself is gonna miss his laugh, his grin, his stupid love for learning, just everything about Bucky and how he really didn't deserve any of this. None of these dead soldiers in World War II deserved any of this, and they've lost so many. And as he gets into that song, he starts to stand. You know, it's slowly transforming into the More Than This song. So Peggy starts replying with, you know, you've got to allow him the dignity of his choice. Like, he chose to go out there with you, and we are so close to stopping Hydra, so let's just finish it. Okay, let's do this. In his honor, in everyone we've lost's honor. That then turns into an Until the End of the Line reprisal, where it's basically Steve going in alone to the Hydra bases. He's quoting Bucky himself, and he's saying, don't do anything stupid until I get back. And he's going, Bucky, what if you're not coming back? What am I supposed to do, Buck? What am I supposed to do? So basically, his depressed ass is going in alone, fighting Hydra alone. He is singing about how he is with Bucky until that end of the line, how he's gonna be seeing his mom, his pops, and Bucky soon. Like, he he's fully going into the fight like this. And eventually it's just him and Red Skull alone on the stage. Red Skull, you know, does this whole thing, there's more to this world than you'll ever know. Steve's like, I know enough, you know, it's a callback to the I can do this all day. So they're on this elevated platform like where Bucky was when Bucky fell, and there's a fight, there's a scuffle again, a little skirmish. They both fall off, right? Steve, boom, fall to the death. We get some frozen ice pushed out on the stage to symbolize Steve freezing over. The curtain falls. And from behind the other side of the curtain, we hear basically old-timey news bits, you know, talking about how the war is over, the war is won, etc, etc. Okay, yes, technically it is the next day. I kind of stopped filming last night because the Emmys came on and I really wanted to see if WandaVision won anything, but let's just carry on. Okay, so as we all left off, the curtain is now raising. We see the Howling Commandos, we see the rest of the soldiers, they're all cheering, and in the center, we have Peggy and Howard about to sing a song called The World Moves On, which might sound kind of obvious there, but they're singing about how the world is moving on, the world is changing, but they can't forget Steve. This is also the song where they found S.H.I.E.L.D. You know, they got a little funny dialogue spersed in the middle of the music, you know, we can call it S.H.I.E.L.D. It can be the Strategic Homeland Intervention Enforcement and Logistics Division. Howard's like, isn't that a mouthful? Peggy's like, would you rather we call it Steve? And as the song is progressing, as S.H.I.E.L.D. and the offices are getting built up around them, behind them, etc., they're singing about all the things that are happening in the world. They landed a man on the moon, you know, they've got all new dangers, they need to protect the world, etc, etc. And during this scene, young Peggy ages into older Peggy Carter. And this Peggy Carter is played in universe by Angie Martinelli, who came out of retirement at her old age because she couldn't see anyone else playing the role of Peggy Carter. Like, that's just very important to me. It needs to be Angie, okay? It has to be Angie.
It's just a matter of time before Broadway calls.
I'm afraid I can't carry a tune.
Doesn't matter when you got legs like yours.
Anyways, this older Peggy is really just there as a little cameo because obviously in this timeline, Angie Martinelli, honestly, tag yourself. That's how I feel. Is there some irony in the I can do this all day earring falling off? So older Peggy then hands the keys and symbolically hands the shield over to Nick Fury. And you know, he could sing a little song too about like his hopes for the future, how he's taken over S.H.I.E.L.D., he's excited. And then a few seconds later, he gets a call from our dear Phil Coulson saying, boss, we got something you need to see. So now the stage is kind of split, right? Peggy is still sort of in her office, and Coulson and Fury are like casually chilling over here, staring at the sleeping body of Steve Rogers. Obviously, this is not how that actually went in the MCU, but because this is a musical, and because this would work out perfectly in a song format, we're doing it this way. But basically, now we have a song called Out of Time, in which Peggy is in her office mourning how she is out of time to make any more impact on the world. Like, she's kind of done everything she could, and now she's out of time, she's retiring. So Peggy is singing to the photographs, you know, Skinny Steve, her and the Howling Commandos and Bucky and Steve, etc. Meanwhile, on the other side of the stage, Steve picks up the duet, and he is singing about how he is now a man out of time, and everything has changed for him. The curtain starts to drop, Peggy behind it, Steve in front of it as their duet continues. I'm really getting like goodbye my darling vibes. Old world is over, welcome to the new age. And then Steve walks off stage and bam, we have made it to intermission. And here we can just vibe, you know, we got 20 minutes, people are going to the bathroom, etc, etc. So technically for this musical, I ended it with the Battle of New York. Because I kind of assumed from the trailer giving us the footage of the Battle of New York that that was almost like the finale type of situation. And also because when I sat down to draft it, bringing it all the way to Thanos was slightly difficult because to Steve's story, Thanos just sort of pops up. He just pops up. And narratively, it's a little rough. However, there are elements to Steve's story that happen beyond the first Avengers movie that I feel like are important to include, such as the introduction of Sam Wilson. The curtain rises again, this time the background setting, it's new, it's modern, it's sleek, it is the 21st century, and here we have the running scene that we all know and love. For some reason, I am picturing the vibes of Taylor's It's Nice to Have a Friend as like background background melody. I don't know why, but that's what's in my head. But basically, we have a song called On Your Left, in which now Steve and Sam are singing a duet, and they are singing about how they miss their right-hand man. We have Steve singing about Bucky, we have Sam singing about Riley, and they are connecting. I think this is also kind of good too because it kind of foreshadows Sam stepping into Steve's role as Captain America later on. And I love the concept of introducing Sam sooner because he is important to Steve's story. Like, he's one of the first true friends that Steve makes in the modern world. So I feel like introducing him here allows Steve to sort of reminisce on the old days, mourn the loss of Bucky and the 1940s in general and his old life, and at the same time bridge the whole timeless hero aspect, because here is Sam, who has also lost his right-hand man, and here is Steve, who has just lost his. Like, the wars are different, but the story is the same. You know what I mean? Anyways, then Nat walks in, hands Steve a case file, and tells him it is time to get to work. And in the musical of Steve Rogers' life, Sam is with him, okay? We're getting the Nat, Sam, Steve trio because it's one of my favorite things. We're getting that early, okay? It is very, very important to me that Natasha gets a solo here as well. And the fact that in Black Widow, we kind of have Kate Shortland coming in and confirming that Natasha was a public figure as well. She's on magazine covers, little girls look up to her. Like, we got that. That is canon. It is canon. So I feel like it fits that she'd also be included in a musical, even though she was very much so not really included in any post-Endgame stuff. I am looking at you, Far From Home. But, you know, she got one PowerPoint slide, so. Her whole element of, like, she's not alone and constantly not wanting Steve to be alone, it just fits that You're Not Alone is the song here. So basically, Natasha hands Steve the case files, he's reading through them, flipping through them, and she notices that his heart isn't in it, so she starts up a song about how he's not alone in the fact that his entire world has changed. He's not alone in the feelings of leaving an old life behind to start a new life. He's not alone in losing the people in that old life and having to now build a new life and a new family, you know, in the new future that he now has. So, you know, she sings about how she relates to those feelings, how she's also lived those feelings, and how she has learned to sort of become anything anyone wants her to be. And she's learned to find her own family. And I think what's really cool about this is that Sam can sort of pick up into this song now because Natasha could say something at the end of, like, her solo and be like, you know what, this world's got a lot of cool things to live for. Okay, this 21st century, it's amazing. We've got mint chocolate chip ice cream, there's amazing sunset views, vests have pockets, you know, it's really exciting. And there's stuff that can make you happy that you can live for in this world. And then Sam can pick up. He could be talking, you know, he's like, yeah, have you heard of the Trouble Man soundtrack? Like, there's a lot of really cool things to live for. And it could be sort of like a verbal equivalent of Steve's list in Winter Soldier. Also, like, as they're doing this, Coulson is handing them new case files and new case files and new case files. And he's cheering them on from the background. And, like, basically the background's shifting as they're doing things. You know, they could be throwing punches, but, like, other cases too. Like, Steve could be rescuing a cat from a tree, handing it to a child. Oh, a small child could hug Natasha. That would be really cute. And as that's happening, Steve is now getting into the song with them. He's talking and singing about things that he's excited to try out, things he's excited to see in the future, like, you know, food, not boiled anymore, amazing new paint supplies, they still have Converse, you know, like the little things, basically. As the three of them are, like, singing, they're a trio, they're into it, they're vibing. Coulson comes in, we can give him a line in the song, you know, he could be singing about how vintage trading cards are really cool, that's something to live for. He hands them a case and says, yo, the three of you are needed in Germany pronto. And this leads into basically my favorite part of the whole musical because it is just so funny. Could just be me tooting my own horn, but I think it's quite funny. Background shifts, etc., etc. They end up in Germany. Loki is standing above everyone. He's trying to get all these people to kneel. Steve is like, oh my god, there's another one. What are the literal odds? I have been awake for like how many days? There's another person up there trying to take over the world from Germany. What is this? Steve starts breaking into a rendition of I Can Do This All Day. You know, he's starting with the I don't like bullies speech. The music is picking up. We think he is about to get into a whole musical number. And then Tony Stark drops down from the sky next to Loki and the music stops. Tony's like looking at Steve. He's like, oh, pretty spry for an old guy. Steve makes a comment like, oh my god, you look just like Howard. Tony is like, I really don't see it. Now mind you, the actor who played Howard in the 40s, he's playing Tony. It's the same actor. So Tony's like, well, I don't really see it. He opens his mouth, the music picks up, he's about to start getting into it about how he is nothing, like dear old dad, right? He's getting up, building up the musical number, and then bam, Thor shows up right next to Loki as well and cuts off Tony's whole musical intro. Thor grabs Loki's arm and pulls. Tony pulls it from the other side. It's a little tug of war. Who wants Loki more? You know, basically if you put the fans on stage, that's what would be happening. It's chaotic. It's dark. Bam, lightning. Bam, lightning. Thunder in the background. Everyone is sort of scrambling off the stage as Thor pulls Loki aside and they start a rap battle using Tony's whole dear old dad that he was about to start. So basically, Loki's over here singing about how he is just doing what Odin himself did, right? Like, Odin conquered all the 9 realms, so now he's just gonna pretend to be angry when Loki's taking over Midgard, when in theory, Odin did it himself. Basically just the elements that we see in Ragnarok, but like Loki singing about them. Then Thor, you know, he's going on, he's like, bro, we can't just take over Midgard, right? There's people that I love on Earth. We literally just, we can't take over Earth, okay? They're doing their own thing. I don't know why you're like so against dad, like blah, 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 blah. Loki's over here like, he literally taught us to all hate frost giants, knowing damn well that I am a frost giant. He literally is in control of the textbooks and the learning and the education that we're taught in Asgard, and he taught a bunch of baby Asgardians as we were all growing up that frost giants are evil monsters, knowing that he adopted a frost giant and didn't tell me that, but fine if you don't think there's anything wrong with dad. Tony's over here thinking, you know, who doesn't have daddy issues, right? If this was me, if this was me writing a musical for the general audience of the MCU, mind you, I have been raised on Star Kid, so that's probably where this is coming from, I would 100% have Tony jump in right here and start singing about his dad issues, have Loki and Tony bond over dad issues. All of a sudden, Loki doesn't want to take over Earth anymore because he just relates now to Tony, and then Tony and Loki team up and they do take down the aliens that are coming through together, and Loki's on the side of the Avengers just because of effective communication and Tony and Loki relating over separate dad issues and how bad they feel their dads are. So I feel like that personally would be just hilarious to me. However, in the general MCU sense, in a musical about Steve Rogers' life that is currently playing in the MCU to normal civilians of the MCU, we all know they probably have not forgiven Loki for New York, so I feel like Loki is still the villain here. Eventually in this, Loki's like, bro, there's more coming. Even if you stop me now, you wouldn't be able to stop the aliens, the incoming death, because I'm a goth kid and impending doom is what I live for. Basically, he's going on about how there's definitely more coming and they are in so much trouble, right? So Steve, basically, he gets in between them finally, and he's like, what the hell do you mean there's more coming? And he's like, okay, we're taking you in. We're taking both of you in, to Thor and Loki, until we can figure out what to do next. Thor obviously is like, well, duh, I'm not letting my brother out of my sight, excuse me. So basically they bring the two of them in to Coulson and Fury, right? Fury's asking all these questions like, oh my god, aliens? How many? When? What's the timeline? Excuse me, what are we supposed to do? Coulson's like, your beeper, sir. Should we call her? Because this is 100% fan service to me. I just think it would be so funny to have Fury actually reference that fan theory where they were like, well, maybe they had a bet. And Fury's like, no, okay, I told her we could last however many years without her help. We're gonna do this ourselves, okay? We're not calling Carol. We're not calling her. We're not touching that beeper because we could do this ourselves, okay? We are strong, independent Earth human beings and we can protect Earth, okay? Without Carol. You can just get rid of all that if you don't want to include it, you know, in your own fan theory. But basically, Coulson's like, well, what the hell are we gonna do? They start pitching out ideas. I haven't really seen any old alien movies, but I'm sure Coulson would start, like, pitching ideas from those, little references that normal people would probably understand. You know, Sam's like, maybe we could reason with them. And here we have Tony's song called A Suit of Armor. This has the same musical elements as Howard's Around the World, previously in Act 1, and I just think it's really cool that together they make Tony's quote about a suit of armor around the world. I think that's just really cool narratively. If this musical didn't end at Battle of New York, right, if we were going all the way to Thanos, I would 100% have a suit of armor in the like Age of Ultron portion, where like intermission would probably fall after the Battle of New York, right? And then it would pick up immediately with Tony singing about how he needs a suit of armor. But because we're ending this musical at Battle of New York, I feel like we still need to include this song. Basically, it's just him singing about how like a suit of armor around the world would obviously protect him, protect the people that he loves, and he's dreaming about all of the tech advancements that he can create to actually help the world be a better place and protect them against dangers. He's gonna go literally kill all these aliens, etc. Like, they're not gonna stand a chance if you had a suit of armor around the world. Steve's like, bro is going in guns blazing, the best course of action right here. And they start getting into an argument, you know, we can include the whole like dialogue, everything special about you came out of a bottle, etc. You know, Steve's like, well, what the hell would you know? You've never been the one to make a sacrifice play. We could get them like ribbing at each other like that, and it can build into a duet between the two of them. Stony fans going wild here. Just sort of like briefly touching on their arguments in Civil War, not fully, because I do feel like a lot of what the two of them go through, like in Age of Ultron with Tony, and then also in Winter Soldier and Steve, like really shape their different perspectives as they go into Civil War, but like sort of briefly touching on how they have such differences of perspective and how they see the world in very, very different ways. Honestly, not totally sure what to call this duet, like maybe something like Stop Pretending or Always a Way Out. I don't know, something between the two of them that references their quotes and their differences. Basically, they're doing their whole thing. They're singing at each other. The team, you know, they're offering in their opinions, their perspectives, trying to get them to stop. Loki, who has just been sort of chilling here this whole damn time, he decides that this musical needs more chaos. He starts poofing green magic. We get little bursts of green poofs. All of a sudden, friends are now turning on each other. They're all chaotic. They're very much so chaotic. They're all fighting each other. Loki is now standing in the middle of all this, thinking to himself, hell the hell yes, this is fun. This is a party right here. He escapes from Thor's grasp. He's running around. He's like, pshoo, 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 at all of these people. People are turning on each other. They're fighting their friends. He ends up behind Coulson, who is currently fighting with Fury, you know, a little fist-to-fist action there. Oh, and he stabs Coulson from behind. He stabs Coulson from behind and then poofs away. Coulson slowly dies in Fury's arms, and everyone, because Loki's gone now, stops fighting with each other and turns to look at Coulson in Fury's arms. The spotlight is now on Coulson and Fury as Fury stands up and starts singing a song called There Was an Idea. Y'all can see where this is going, I'm sure. So Fury, of course, starts getting into it. He's singing about how like there was an idea to bring together a group of remarkable people, etc., etc. And as he's like looking at the team, he's going down the line, he's singing about their strengths, their assets, what is similar between all of them in the hopes to unify them. And as he is singing about this, all of the Avengers, you know, they're grabbing their things, they're suiting up, they're picking up their shields, they're getting ready. The background is shifting to the streets of New York. We're moving away the office building set. We're bringing in the streets of New York. We're slowly getting some aliens on the outskirts. It's starting to come together, and Fury starts singing about Coulson. And he goes, you know what, he still believed in heroes, but I guess that was an old-fashioned notion. And then boom, as he says an old-fashioned notion, the spotlight, bam, it's on Steve. And Steve is standing there in the middle of all these aliens, in the middle of these Avengers. Everyone's looking at Steve. He just goes, Avengers, assemble. Bam, bam, bam. Crowd goes wild. Anyways, now we have a song called Avengers Assemble, which is really just a big dance-off. We have turned the Battle of New York into a dance-off. Can't take credit for this one. I am stealing it 100% from the clip in the trailer, where it really does appear that that's what's happening. You know, you've got like Natasha and Clint up on the railing up above. You have Steve dancing down below, Fury next to him, Bruce as the Hulk. Like, you've got the whole gang. Everyone's doing a dance-off. And yes, Tony flies into a wormhole in the movies. And I am positive, absolutely positive, that that's going to be in his MCU biopic. However, Rogers the Musical just needs one really good dance scene to get the message across, so that's what's happening here. We've got hints of an I Can Do This All Day reprisal. Everyone's converging on the Thor and Loki fight now. They're doing their whole thing. They capture Loki, throw him in handcuffs. As soon as Loki is captured, the aliens just sort of all drop, and the only ones remaining standing are our Avengers, our heroes, and Loki in handcuffs, etc. And then the curtain drops, the musical is over, everyone claps, we've got a standing ovation, yay, 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 and then the Avengers and everyone, you know, they run out to take their bow. Steve obviously coming last. Well, skinny Steve and older Steve, you know, they're holding hands, they're doing their bow. It's very exciting stuff, honestly. And yeah, that is the conclusion of Rogers the Musical as I think it would be presented in the MCU world. I think there's definitely room for more songs if this musical just knocks it out of the park on Broadway. It's a hit. They decide to make a movie about it. I think they could very, very easily do an extended version and take it all the way to Thanos. With Ultron, that would be a very interesting whole thing. You could have like Natasha singing a duet with Wanda, trying to tell her, hey, don't throw out a good future just because you've had a bad past. Like, I think that would be really good. You could have Steve picking up Mjolnir. You could literally have callbacks to when Steve and Tony had their little argument. And you can have like musical callbacks to Tony being like, everything special about you came out of a bottle, like at the exact point that Steve is picking up Mjolnir, etc., etc. Like, I think you definitely have room to expand a timeless story of a timeless hero to like all the way up to Endgame. However, the poor audience would probably be there for like 5 some hours. B, narratively, it's a little rough because the villains just sort of pop up, which they do in the movies as well, but I just feel like to the audience, like obviously we've seen Thanos, like he's been built up. However, in Steve's story, like from Steve's perspective, like truly just the biggest bully of all just sort of pops down. Just pops down. I do think it would be interesting if you did do an extended version though to like go more into S.H.I.E.L.D. because you could have S.H.I.E.L.D. falling at the same time narratively as like Peggy Carter dies, still played by Angie Martinelli, of course. I think narratively like that would be cool to link, but I just think like villain wise popping up, not narratively that strong, but that's okay. Also, yes, I completely ignored the existence of the Tesseract, of the Infinity Stones in this. However, if the TVA can say that they're as useless as paperweights, like I feel like Rogers the Musical doesn't need them, okay? We can get the point across with musical numbers, it's fine. I also do think to the general public, Thanos and Endgame might be a little bit too raw to make into a musical at this point in time. So I feel like they might want to be a little bit nostalgic to the easier days where they only just found out that aliens exist, but their Lord and Saviors, Steve Rogers and Tony Stark, got rid of them, saved the day. I think they'd probably be more nostalgic for a peaceful time in their life and not wanting to remember a time in which 5 years passed, whether they were gone and the world moved on without them, or they were alive for 5 years and everything's a hot mess. Like, I just think from what we've seen in Falcon and Winter Soldier, it would probably be too raw. There's too much political tension, there's too much just emotions, hurt, anger, grief about everything that went down for them to like want to relive it in musical form like right away. And again, I do think that like Tony's biopic probably gonna cover a lot. You know, Bruce's biography gonna cover a lot. Like, there's room for accurate information and the accurate timeline of events to be portrayed, but it's probably not in Steve's musical. You know what I mean? Also, can we all just agree that Coulson ghost wrote Rogers the Musical in the MCU? Because I feel like he did. And also, if you've seen Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 7, you know that Coulson has a lot of time on his hands. So I do feel like him ghost writing an entire musical, that's on brand. It's on brand and it fits. I could see it happening. But anyways, I have been talking for quite some time. I don't know if anyone actually cared about the entire musical, but if you sat through this entire thing, oh my god, thank you. I hope you enjoyed it. Give this video a big thumbs up if you did, and subscribe if you want more movie and fandom related content, and I will see you guys for the next one. Thanks for watching. See ya.